Welcome to Little Koi Out of the Frying Pan, Thriving After Trauma. This blog post is titled, Guilty Happiness. I remember sitting there in our Isuzu Trooper at a stoplight. My mother and I had just enjoyed a really fun day out together, shopping all morning and lunch at our favorite bistro in Tucson, Arizona. I can still taste the famous prickly pear lemonade. I love the bright pink hue of the prickly pear and the sweet, tangy taste of that chilled liquid. We were chatting happily when my mother reached into her purse to get her tin of Altoids. She opened it up and took out a mint. However, when I reached for one, she snapped the lid shut and angrily exclaimed, "No, Brielle, I've treated you all day already. You don't need anything else." She then lectured how spoiled and ungrateful I was. Immediately, the light-hearted day was ruined. I was flung back into reality. I had enough fun for the day, and now it would be time to pay. The payment could be anything, but typically it was with extra chores, tasks, or other demands that I couldn't refuse or have any negative attitude because she had just spent the entire afternoon spoiling me. In my home, fun was limited, and it always came with a price. I can't tell you how often my mother would cancel school, we were homeschooled, and take us somewhere fun for the day. Whether that be the PlayStation when we lived in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, or the Desert Museum when we lived in Tucson. She would surprise us and take us out for the day. However, when we arrived home, tired, we'd be loaded with extra chores, and my mother would decide we needed to do school after all. So many nights I was up late in exhaustive tears trying to do all of my day's schoolwork in just a couple of hours before bed. And my mother would say, "Well, since you can't handle a day of fun, I guess we just can't do this anymore." In addition, we were not allowed to have any fun for the following several days. If we asked to do something, my mother would say, "No, you already had enough fun today or this week." We were also expected to have flawless behavior for days or weeks following, or we'd get in trouble for being spoiled brats. Eventually, when my mother would try to do something fun with us, I would try to refuse because the price was too great. But unfortunately, the refusal also came with a price. I was told I was entitled and spoiled and had no idea the privilege I had. The mind games were relentless. In the 1998 version of Parent Trap, there is a scene where one of the twins, Hallie, is talking with her mother while in bed. The previous evening, the mother and daughter had gone to the theater. In this particular scene, it was the following morning, and the mother was planning to take Hallie shopping and lunch. I remember being blown away by this scene. In my mind, the mother had just taken her daughter to the theater, and now, the very next day, they are happily making more fun plans? And Hallie is not in trouble for any of it? And her mother still wanted to be around her daughter? That particular scene still strikes a chord with me. I was so envious of this made-up character's mother who was still so kind to her after a whole night at the theater. I couldn't wrap my head around not being guilt-tripped for having fun or not being rejected affection from my mother after having a whole afternoon of attention. Anytime I would look for affection or attention from my mother after a day with her, she would say, "Get out of my face, Brielle. I just spent the entire day with you." In addition, my parents also believed that Christians were not supposed to have too much fun, and they definitely were not supposed to be in a constant state of happiness. According to my parents, Christians were supposed to suffer for the Lord, constantly. If Christians were not constantly suffering, then they must not be serious about their faith. On the other hand, if Christians were constantly suffering, then they must have some sin in their life for which they're being punished. Makes perfect sense, right? Even to this day, I struggle with feeling happy or having fun. When I am not suffering, I wonder if I'm serious about my faith. And when I am suffering, I wonder if I am being punished for something. Deconstructing these lies over the years has helped, but I am still not out of the woods of this belief. Now, I do not put this belief on anyone else. In fact, I envy the people who can live happily and guilt-free. When I was 16 years old, my parents sent me to public school as a punishment, so I could see how good I had it at home. I loved public school. I finally had structure. My school days were predictable. My grades soared. My teachers loved me, and I absolutely thrived. However, because I was thriving, my parents pulled me out. They were not happy. Their plan backfired. During my year of public school, I was still being challenged that I was not being persecuted for my faith by other kids. I was told that I should be hated in school by my peers, just like Jesus' disciples were hated. However, people liked me, and I was happy. So that meant I must not be serious about my faith. I was questioned for being too happy, and I was questioned for not being happy enough. So, needless to say, one of my biggest challenges to this day is experiencing happiness without guilt. If I have too many fun plans, I feel guilty. If people like being around me, I feel guilty. If I could blend in a group where everyone enjoys me, I feel guilty. If my life is going smoothly, I feel guilty. If people compliment me, I feel guilty. And if I'm not suffering, guess what? I feel guilty. However, as I work on my inner child in therapy and my everyday life, my guilt is becoming less and less. And I continue to learn how to embrace happiness, peace, and fun without looking at the emotional price tag. Photo. For those listening, the photo I have attached to this blog is a photo from the scene of the Parent Trap scene that I was referring to. And the caption I have is, "This scene from Parent Trap will shape my future parenting." In this scene, they are making fun plans for the day, even after going to the theater the previous night. I was 12 when I saw this movie, and I knew at this very scene I would have this relationship with my children, and they would never fear fun or happiness. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye.